Thanks to Pulseway for sponsoring this video. So Apple just wrapped WWDC 2022. That means two things. One, Apple fans are super happy. The other side's not so happy. But it also means that we are halfway through the year, which is kind of nuts to think about. And we also now have a clear idea of what's coming from Apple for the rest of the year. And I think more importantly, what isn't coming. And there is a lot to talk about. All right, so let's start with iPhone. It's hard to predict exactly what Apple's going to release next, but if there's anything we are sure of, it's that a new iPhone is coming, and it will be here in the fall. And it will be
the most advanced iPhone we've ever created.
So iPhone 16 was packed with more features than I think a lot of us, but maybe just me, more than I was expecting. And some of them were very clearly meant for the iPhone 14, more specifically for the iPhone 14 Pro. So let's talk about that new lock screen. It is the most obvious example. So if you look at what Apple did, this is very clearly a lead up to finally an always on display for the iPhone 14 series. You guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Apple will be the first phone manufacturer to ever put an always on display on phones. So that'll be great to have the Apple fans be able to say, you know, they had that first. We also heard, don't at me. We also heard rumors that this would come to the iPhone 13 Pro, but since the ProMotion display that we got on that phone only clocked down to 10 Hz at a minimum, it didn't meet the standards that an Apple would want for an always-on display. According to rumors, the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max feature a new panel that'll clock down to 1 Hz? Hertz. I don't know. You guys will tell me too in the comments. So this means the screen is only refreshed once a second and allow for an always-on display. It's not going to just be the destroyer of battery life. So this LTPO display tech is basically the same as what we have in the Apple Watch, and companies like Samsung and many others are already using these types of panels in their phones. So not a giant surprise to see it come to the iPhone. So with the rumor of the hardware and the announcement of iOS 16, the always-on display I think is starting to take much clearer shape. And also, I think if you could predict anything for the next iPhone, software-wise, and hardware, I guess, that would be the one to expect to happen. So now, while it's not guaranteed we'll get this feature, it seems very, very likely, and I'm glad that Apple went ahead and let sort of all iPhones use this new lock screen. That's very un-Apple of them. And since this rumored always-on display is supposed to be coming only to the Pro series, it would leave the other phones behind. But now you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. The 14 is going to get the new lock screen, and the Pro gets the lock screen and the always-on display. It's a good compromise, and also it's nice, again, to have the Pro series have features that the regular series does not. Messages is getting a bunch of much-needed upgrades. So you can edit it, which is awesome. You can unsend it, and super excited about marking as unread. Oftentimes, I'm sure, like you guys, I'll forget to reply to messages because I read it. I don't see notification, and I just, bad friend. So hopefully that'll help me be a better friend. And the new Home app, which I think Quinn tweeted out perfectly when he said it can't get any worse. So it got updated. So now it's less bad than it was before UI-wise. And some security features also were pretty important there. But on the whole, these aren't giant showstoppers. But it is indicative of what we're going to be getting with the iPhone 14 series. So I'm not expecting that to be a giant major update. 13S style. The iPhone 14 is basically the iPhone 13. It's even rumored to be using the same A15 chip that we currently have in the 13. Talking just about the 14, not the Pro. Have the same notch, same camera, and maybe the most minor update we have ever seen from the iPhone. The biggest difference is replacement of the Mini for the Max. So you'll have a 6.7-inch screen on a regular iPhone instead of having to pay the top tier money to get the giant daddy on the Pro side. That alone, I think, will help Apple sell a lot of iPhones. But certainly it's not the most exciting thing from a marketing standpoint. Luckily though, the iPhone Pro, so the 14 side, should be getting a decent amount more. So we talked a lot about the always on display, but that display should also have that pill cutout instead of the notch. I don't know if you want to call that a feature, but it looks different at least. Most importantly though, the camera on the back should be getting a just huge update. So since the iPhone 6S actually, the main camera on the iPhone has been 12 megapixels. Expecting that to be bumped now to 48, and by my math, that's a big bump. And it's sort of the one thing that I've loved about other phones is how good their cameras are. And Apple's done some of the best when it comes to processing, but without resolution, you can only do so much. So now you're pairing the high resolution camera with Apple's processing, and I think a lot like Google's done with the Pixel, that's proven to be a winning combination. Also, this was a bit surprising. huge updates to CarPlay. And not just like, we have new icons, but like the whole CarPlay shebang, being able to go across multiple screens. And the biggest knock on CarPlay was it couldn't really control anything from your car. Talking about fans, air conditioning, miles per hour, that kind of stuff. It just sort of showed you what was on your phone. Apple's clearly looking to integrate themselves heavily into cars. I think if there's one thing most car manufacturers are very bad at, it is software. And it's one thing Apple is very good at, it's software. Now, I'm not saying that CarPlay is like the rumored Apple car we've been talking about, but certainly seems like a Trojan horse to get Apple into cars. So I think that's gonna be a really interesting thing to watch over the next few years. First, what cars get this, and then if Apple decides to sort of make their play to the car. So listen, there are obviously a lot of pretty, I think, exciting updates and new releases coming from Apple the rest of the year. But one feature that you can get today, actually from this video sponsor, Pulseway. Pulseway makes monitoring computers that aren't in front of you very easy. Whether it's server management or you're like, oh, I need to log in to be able to send that file or that document I wrote, you've got the option to do all of those things. So if you're not familiar broadly, Pulseway is a really cool all-in-one IT management tool that helps you monitor and manage pretty much any system, whether it's Mac, PC, Linux server, Windows work machine. Pulseway can absolutely handle it all. And you can always make sure that you're the first one to know when the system is down, security issue, whether or not there's a problem with your IT environment. You'll also, if you need, you'll have out-of-the-box commands, take action, kill processes, reset user passwords, remote into other machines, and a bunch more. But I think one of the most interesting things that it does is you can do all of this wherever you are. Whether you are at another desktop or with your mobile phone, thanks to their desktop and mobile apps. So if you wanna check it out and try it today, hit the link down below. And once that trial is over, if you wanna stick with it, there's a limited time 20% offer. I'm not gonna talk about it here too much, but I did just make a video on the M1 iPad Pro and iPadOS 16. So if you want more information on that, and there's a lot to talk about with iPadOS, it deserved this whole video. We'll link to it here and down there. So, while the next iPhone is, I think, shaping up to be the minorest of updates, the Mac, though, is just like full steam ahead on development and in a lot of ways innovation. So, I think a lot of people, myself included, weren't sure we would see the M2 processor, WWDC. There were rumors it would be delayed until the fall at the earliest, but we got it, and we also got the new MacBook Air that it went into. This isn't as giant a deal as the original M1 just from a processor standpoint. Second generation is not mind-blowing in terms of upgrades, but it is a very solid year-over-year improvement. It appears to be about 15 to 20% faster, but just as efficient. So, I don't know, not mad at that. The more exciting thing though, I think, is the hardware that it went into, and that's the MacBook Air. I loved my M1 MacBook Air, and it was my main computer until the 14-inch MacBook Pro came, but Apple didn't really try with that design. Now you got a complete redesign that is basically MacBook Pro squeezed into a thinner package. I think it looks awesome. We also have MagSafe and more ports, so now the computer is much more usable. I wish we had an SD card slot in there, maybe the MacBook Air Pro, but it still is a very well-rounded computer, now available in different colors. Just beautiful hardware overall. We didn't get the super vibrant colors that we were expecting. We didn't get the white bezels we were expecting, just that new midnight blue color. I think it looks super dope. You know, maybe you disagree. We also didn't get the mini LED display tech like was rumored early on. There was a lot we were thinking might come to the new MacBook Air, but just didn't make it into at least this version. So I wasn't mad at any of those updates. They were awesome. If there's one thing that left me scratching my head and confused, it's the MacBook Pro. And I'm not talking about like the 14 or the 16 inch, but they put the M2 in the 13-inch MacBook Pro and didn't really do anything else. They also kept the price super high. So it's more expensive than the new MacBook Air. Looks exactly the same as it did before. It's just a little bit confusing as to why this computer exists. And that makes the future of Mac hardware kind of confusing as well. Apple seems to be refusing to discontinue hardware. They're really driving it down here. So when you think that you know what Apple's going to do, they tend to take like a sharp left turn. I think the biggest product though that we're waiting for from the Mac side is the new Mac Pro. So Apple said it's coming, and this is the only Mac that is yet to make the Apple Silicon transition, just the question is when. I thought WWDC seemed like a perfect place to introduce it. Maybe make a comment about, can't innovate anymore, ma, beep. Especially considering this is where we saw the 2019 trash can MacBook Pro. But we didn't get it. So when will we? And again, let's go to the rumors. So according to Mark Gurman, the Mac Pro is going to run on M2 architecture. But up until WWDC, that was confusing since the M2 didn't exist. But now that it does, M2 makes sense. So on the other hand, this Mac Pro should be using the highest end processor Apple will make, even above the Ultra. So right now we're expecting it to be called Extreme, because I'm running out of words to call these things, and essentially 2 Ultra chips fused together. So will Apple skip all the other computers and release the M2 Extreme before the M2 Pro, Max, and Ultra? Probably not. I still expect the Mac Pro to be quite a ways off for a few reasons. First, Apple told us the Mac Pro is coming. That's a strange admission from a notoriously tight-lipped Apple. So why did they do that? I think it's because they knew it's going to take a very, very long time. So instead of making all the pros fear the Mac Studio was replacing the Pro, they just went ahead and got in front of it. Said, hey, this is coming, and if you're that's what you're gonna want, just wait, it'll be here eventually. Another reason isn't because of the Mac Pro, but I think because of the Pro Display XDR2, that's rumored to be in the works, but apparently Apple is not planning to release any mini LED displays for the rest of 2022 due to supply issues. And since the XDR update is rumored to have mini LED, you probably won't see it until next year, making it a perfect pairing with the Mac Pro. So Apple announced a lot of new stuff out now, but still a lot on the table for the rest of the year and beyond. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, how Apple mitigates supply chain issues and global shortages to get their products out on time. I think we'll see sort of that story start to play out in a few months when we get the iPhone 14.